Oh no.
Got him. We're done.
I mean, he could just check here, I guess, but probably not. Oh, he just checked. Somehow he just checked.
That.
He felt it. He felt it so hard. Good job, yo. Good job.
We are playing heads up on Game of Gold. Maria Ho against Yoh Viral. Yoh Viral is relatively shallow stacked with a whopping 12 big blinds. Maria with the King Jack offsuit on the button limps. You may say, limp? What's up with that? Well, King Jack is good enough to limp and then call an all-in. If the stacks were a little bit shallower, perhaps just open shoving would be ideal, but limping King Jack is certainly reasonable in this situation. Over to Yoh Viral with this 12 big blind stack. King 9 offsuit's a very easy all-in. It's close. If stacks were deeper, like let's say 15 big blinds, you could certainly check the King 9. But once you get down to something like 12 big blinds, unless you're just really sure you're getting trapped, you probably want to go all in, because winning the 240K in the pot and adding that to your 1.4 million stack is very, very valuable. Maybe he senses the trap though. He says, let's see the flop.
What is that? What is that? That literally makes 0 sense.
The flop comes Queen of Clubs, 8 of Spades, 7 of Spades, and Yoh Viral bets 1 big blind. Yoh Viral has developed a leading strategy in all sorts of situations, as we have seen in Game of Gold. Typically, when people lead, it's usually with a range of something like really good made hands, marginal made hands, high equity draws, and low equity draws. And this King of Spades 9 is an interesting hand to lead with, because you don't really want to bet this and get raised. It'd be a bit of a disaster, given Yoh Viral does have some equity with his overcard, backdoor flush draw, and backdoor straight draw. That said, if you don't think you're going to get raised very often at all on the flop, then leading is quite nice, because if you lead and your opponent calls, you're going to get a lot of turn cards that allow you to continue betting very confidently. That said, when you do lead tiny, 1 big blind in this scenario, you should get raised a large chunk of the time by your opponent's polarized range, and that's going to force you to fold out this hand, which would be a disaster. But I will say, most people in the real world do not raise against bets in this scenario nearly often enough. So he does go for the 1 big blind bet. Let's see how Maria proceeds. Maria opts to call with the King of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs, and I certainly don't fault her for this. The problem is that if Yoh Viral does have a no showdown value hand, like say he is leading with 9-5 with a spade, he may just bet the turn and jam the river, and you're gonna have to fold out the King Jack by the river, right? That said, she is in position, getting good odds. She only needs to realize 25% equity in this situation, and against all the draws, she's gonna be a little bit of a favorite. And even if she is behind a queen or an 8 at this point, she still has some outs to make a pair. So I think she has to call, although it does feel pretty nasty. This is a spot where I do think a lot of people overfold, and especially when you're playing heads up against someone who likes to lead with all sorts of stuff, you can't go around folding decent king high.
No, I think he would bet this
He
big.
bets 240 shove.
No, he bets this bigger. Come on. He bets this bigger. He bets like 350 or something.
The turn is an absolute disaster for Yoh Viral. It is the King of Hearts. At this point, he went from having a junky draw to a really good made hand. Top pair, heads up, when you bet the flop and your opponent calls, is almost always good. So Yoh Viral bets it. He's going straight up for value, 350K into the 480K pot. I like this bet, especially given the board is very, very draw heavy. If somehow the board was not so connected with fewer straight and flush draws, perhaps he could go smaller. This is a great bet size because it's going to allow him to easily shove the river if he does get called. Over to Maria. Let's see how she proceeds with her top pair with a slightly better kicker.
Eight, nine, eight.
After a bit of thought, Maria decides to call, and calling is certainly reasonable and fine. I think in this spot, though, I may have shoved all in. And the reason I would have shoved all in here is because Yoh Viral only has 930k in his stack remaining, and you have to realize that when he does bet the flop, a lot of his range should be draws. And a lot of those draws just picked up some additional equity. Like say he did lead Jack 10, right? You don't really care if Jack 10 folds, especially if Yoh Viral may or may not bluff it on the river. And if he does have a high equity draw, like a flush draw, or well, an open-ended straight draw, right? You don't really care if he folds that right now, right? You really want him to fold hands that have decent equity. Now, of course, if Maria knew he was sitting there with something like Queen 2 that had relatively little equity, then sure, keep him in. But I think when Yoh Viral does use this somewhat big bet size on the turn, he's going to start to become very polarized to good made hand, which Maria beats, right? She does beat the majority of good made hands here. High equity draws, like flush draws, maybe with even additional equity, or good straight draws. And then some total junk. And yeah, if Yoh Viral has too much total junk, then calling and forcing him to stay in the pot is very, very nice. But I'm not sure he's going to have too much total junk in this spot, given Maria's going to have a lot of pairs and a lot of high equity draws herself. So in that scenario, shoving becomes very viable when stacks start to get somewhat short, but I certainly understand calling and keeping him in, especially given we've seen on Game of Gold, Yoh Viral do a whole lot of leading with a whole lot of stuff. So, Maria calls. Let's head to the river.
Who did that? You said it's going to be a deuce, didn't you? Or you said 4.
The river is the 2 of spades, putting up the flush, but Yoh Viral does still have top pair with the king of spades, blocking some of Maria's potential flushes. He opts to go for all in. This may look optimistic, maybe a little too thin. However, you got to realize he's only playing with a little bit less than a pot size bet remaining. If the stacks were much deeper, this would be an excellent spot just to check and call a bet, or maybe go for a small bet. But when stacks start to get shallow, especially you have something like 80% pot or less, quite often your best option is to go all in with your hands that are pretty good, that you don't really plan on betting and then folding to a raise. So he does go for it, all in. Let's see if Maria can find the call.
Just throw one chip. Just throw it in there.
She's going to call, though. She's going to call.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Let's go! Yeah, let's go!
After a lot of thought, Maria finally makes the call. Let's see if she can collect the pot, though.
She's slow rolling him. What?
She slow rolled him. Maria, you jerk.
Maria took forever and maybe slow rolled Yoh Viral. Do you think she did? Take a second, think about it, and let me know what you think in the comment section down below.
Same. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, it's not a flush? Sorry, I didn't mean to slow roll you.
okay.
I thought you had the king 9 of spades. So sorry.
Oh my god! She almost mucked it.
She thought it's flush.
Oh, little sneeze, Steven!
I personally do not think Maria slow rolled Yoh Viral. I think she simply could not tell what he had. I mean, look, he had the 9 of clubs. It could have easily been the 9 of spades, right? Also, they're playing on a relatively long table, and if you've ever played at one end of the table, especially if you don't have the best eyesight ever, it's kind of hard to tell what your opponent has. I always ask the dealer, what do they have if I have any doubt whatsoever? I had to get LASIK surgery because I could not see from one end of the table to the other. And, you know, you got to do what you got to do to be a successful poker player. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Click the like and subscribe button before you go. I'll talk to you next time.